and it was found in Mastery Connect. So let's go ahead and review what the best answers were on that Mastery Connect assignment. All right, on my screen you can see some notes from our interactive notebook where I've posted something that can help you with these types of questions. We're going to quickly go over the best answers, and you can already see where I've annotated or circled the best answer on your screen. So if I'm moving fast, you can see my brain work there. All right, so the first question asks you to read a passage, and it says, who is the narrator in the story above? And if you chose the best answer, you would have chosen Mateo. He is the narrator. He is who told the story. In question 2, you read a passage about Richard. It says, this passage is narrated in, and the best answer is third person. Remember to avoid or stay away from that dialogue that can be spoken words or internal thoughts. And if you do that and focus on the pronouns, then you should be able to see clues like he, his, them, proving the best answer of third person. Question 3 was about Sir Alexander Fleming. It says, how would this story be different if it were told from Fleming's point of view? And the best answer you can see was A. The reader would most likely know more about Alexander's feelings about his discovery. This is the strongest answer. Question 4. You are standing at the front doors on the first day of school, and it goes on to say more about what happens. Which point of view is this passage written? Is second person. And I know because of the very first word that says you. You then read The Best Feeling in the World by Courtney Goff, and this was a longer text. The first question about this text says, how does the point of view affect the story? And you can see the best answer is, the reader knows only what the narrator thinks and sees. Number 6, how would the story be different if it was written from the third person point of view? The best answer was B. The reader would know how Kristen's father became interested in boating. And number 6 was a commonly missed question. Number 7, which passage is written from the first person point of view? A, the diving board was at the other end of the swimming pool. I could see it from where I stood. The diving board was long, thin, and green. It moved up and down with a gentle breeze. This is an example of first person because it uses words like I. The other answer choices do not. Number 8, which passage is written from the second person point of view? You can see I circled D, and here is the reason why, because it uses that clue word you. Number 9, which passage is written from the third person point of view? The best answer was B. Indrick, please come to the blackboard and solve this math problem, Mr. Blanker said at his desk. His. Notice how I did not choose any clues inside of dialogue. And then number 10 was a writing question. And I want to give a big shout out to 3 students. Now, there were more people that sent me work, but these are 3 examples I want us to look at. So shout out to Angelina, Sam, and Nora Beth. They chose either first, second, or third person point of view, and then they wrote some sentences that explain that point of view. Let's go ahead and start with Angelina's example. Angelina said, I think A is the answer to question number 7 because it uses I, which is the in first person point of view. I had noticed that all the other answer choices except for A was third person point of view as well because all the other answer choices were third person. And then she goes on to give a final reason about it was personal. Now notice, guys, the question does say choose either first, second, or third person point of view and then write 3 to 4 sentences that uses that point of view. So I think Angelina did a great job of explaining the best answer to the previous question. But what I loved about this answer is how it changed the point of view. Now this one is from Nora Beth. I do think she went back and made some changes after I took this photo, but I want to go ahead and read her first draft. She said, I woke up to the heartwarming scent of peppermints and chocolates filling the air. Then I heard my little brother and sister scream, Presents! At a high pitched, excited voice. I finally realized it then. It's Christmas. How could I forget? The most wonderful day of the year. I quickly put on my slippers and raced down the stairs. My brother and sister were already playing with their new toys. Then I saw it just peeking up out of my stocking, a little card. I tore it open with excitement. I saw it was a simple card as my parents watched me with excitement. I felt confused. My mom then said, Well, Sally, are you going to open it? So I did. I'm so thankful I did. Dear Sally, I know you've been wanting this for a few years now. However, I haven't been able to give it to you until now. I hope you and your family love it and cherish it for life. Sincerely, Santa C. I then heard a light whimper from the door. I opened it, and standing there was a puppy. I was so excited. It was an actual puppy. It looked just like a little chocolate chip. It was officially the best Christmas ever. Using your chat bar, I want everyone to type in what point of view did Nora Beth write from? First person point of view, second person point of view, or third person? And I'm seeing some people have already voted. Good. This is first person point of view. I love Nora Beth's use of vivid language and imagery. And lastly, I'm noticing that Sam sent some notes for us. First, I personally like fishing, just pointing that out. Second, I caught a fish before. And then third, I even played with a dead fish. So you can see he also chose to give a personal narrative, which is first person point of view. Good job. All right, so now that we have reviewed from last Thursday, I want us to know what today's focus is, so use your chat to fill in my blank. Today I'm using two texts so that I can compare blank or topics. I'll know I've got it if I can determine how the themes or topics of two texts are similar and blank. And I'm noticing people have typed themes and also different. So we're looking at how themes or topics are alike and how they are different. So we are looking at more than one text. I want you to take a moment to look at our data. You can see from our Case 21 assessment, the standard is RL49. Compare and contrast themes and topics. You can see a yellow arrow pointing to how we did on this standard. I'm going to circle it for you as well. So you can see that we had some in green, but only about 22% of all of my students combined mastered this skill. So most of us were in yellow and some in red. That means today we have an amazing opportunity to grow in this area. We're going to begin by seeing what we really already know about this topic. And we're going to try to do that using a game of Kahoot. Please remember, do not end the Google Meet tab. So leave your Google Meet open as you join our game of Kahoot. And remember to cross your fingers. Good job on that game of Kahoot, guys and girls, as we warmed up our brain about theme and how to compare and contrast. Now, I do want to show you guys something. Emma asked a great question. She said, what is a double bubble map during our game? So I'm going to show you when we've done these before. All right, so let's go ahead and review what we already know about theme. We already know, and you told me that you knew in our Kahoot, that the theme is the moral, message, or lesson of the story. Sometimes it is stated, which means the author tells us. Sometimes it's implied, and normally it is implied more than it is stated, which means we have to make an inference using context clues or clues in the text. Now, one thing I want you to notice on my screen is that often stories will have similar themes or lessons, especially if you're thinking about text and literature from different areas around the world. We call these cultural texts. Good readers compare and contrast topics, events, and themes in traditional literature. Sometimes with similar themes, there might have similar characters and events as well. Different authors may approach the theme or topics in their own ways. Comparing and contrasting similar stories can help you learn about the genre or cultures the stories belong to. And on your screen, you should be able to see some questions that growing readers ask. Questions like, what is the topic or subject of the story? And remember, topic and theme are not the same. Topic is what is actually happening, kind of like the main idea. How is the pattern of events similar and different in both stories? This helps you understand more about the theme. How are the characters similar and different in both stories? What lesson does the main character learn in each story? What does this teach me about the culture or country the story originated in? These are questions the best readers ask themselves when they're thinking about how to compare and contrast topics or themes. Now, remember at the beginning of our lesson, we looked at our data, and I told you many of us were in yellow and many of us were in red. I do have some of us, though, that were in green. And if you are in green, I want you to leave your Google Meet tab open. But you also have a choice of doing this mastery practice activity. Notice how it is labeled in Google Classroom as mastery practice during Google Meet. Compare and contrast themes and topics. So as I'm teaching, you have a choice of doing that. For those that do not see their name on the screen, you can do this on your own time at any time this week, but it is not required. It is not your independent practice. And last week we had a couple of students who thought it was the assignment. It is not. It is an extra activity. It is extra practice. It is not the independent practice I'm expecting all students to complete. Notice how it says mastery. Yes. No, this is optional, and if your name is on the screen, you may choose to do it while you listen, but you do not have to. If your name is not on the screen, please stay focused on the lesson with me because your data shows that you need to see some more things from me. Will asked a question. He said, do we do both? I'm understanding, Will, you're asking after the meet? Do we do both? You may choose to do both. It's the same game. One is for a computer and one is for a mobile device, but it's the same game. You're welcome. All right, so today let's go ahead and look together at our learning target and how we can become better readers when we're thinking about comparing and contrasting similar themes and topics in stories. Often we have to understand that different parts of the world give us different pieces of literature. And when we understand that, then we can really think about how to compare and contrast the lessons taught in those pieces of literature. And that will also help us understand more about their culture. Please use your chat bar to fill in my blank. Comparing and contrasting stories can help you make connections between topics, characters, events, and themes in traditional literature. These stories were originally passed down by word of blank and were written down much later. Traditional stories often share the same topic. For example, the opposition or struggle between good and evil is a common topic. The theme of a story is its message or lesson, which is told through the characters and events as the story unfolds. Both are two stories with the same topic. Read each story and decide how they are similar and how they are different. So we're going to read two. One is called The Jealous Bird. The second is called The Sad Frog. Please fill in my blank using the chat bar. And great job to those who did that when I was reading earlier. So make sure you're focused because I know it's easy to get distracted with you being in different locations. The jealous bluebird. Rabbit and Mouse were best friends, but Bluebird, who was jealous, tried to separate them. I will grant you each one wish, said Bluebird. I wish to travel to a far away land, Rabbit said. Bluebird granted the blank, noting with a smirk that Rabbit did not wish he could also return. But Mouse was not fooled. I wish that my friend will always find his way home, and Bluebird had no choice but to grant this wish too. The sad frog. Once there lived a frog who wished she could blank, so she asked a heroine to teach her. Flying is easy, said the heroine. Just flap your wings like this. And the heroine flew away before the frog could say, but I have no wings. So since this heroine has wings, I'm making the inference it must be a type of bird. The frog hopped away sadly, wishing for wings she could never have. She didn't realize that a snake near a rock had heard everything and was wishing he could hop as gracefully as the frog. Good job filling in my blank. So now let's go ahead and think about how we can identify the topic of a story. We are going to use some guiding questions to help us. What is the story about? And we're also going to think about what is the story trying to teach me? I'm going to use this graphic organizer. It's a chart to compare and contrast the characters, events, and themes of the two texts that we read. So once again, this is about the jealous bluebird and the sad frog. So still about that same text. So I'm thinking the topic of both would be what can happen when wishes are made. This is a topic. It doesn't teach me a lesson, it's just what they're about. So I'm thinking about the jealous bluebird. And as I'm thinking about this, the characters of the jealous bluebird are bluebird, rabbit, mouse. These are all characters found in the jealous bluebird. Now the second text, the sad frog, my characters are the frog, the heron, and the snake. Now in order to compare and contrast the topic and the theme, I have to be able to compare and contrast the characters too. So now I'm thinking about the most important events. Well, in the jealous bluebird, the bluebird tries to separate rabbit and mouse, who are friends. Bluebird tells them he will grant them each one wish. Rabbit wishes to travel far away. Mouse sees Bluebird smirk when Rabbit makes his wish, and then Mouse wishes for Rabbit to always find his way home. Now I'm thinking about the events of the sad frog. And notice how I'm giving only the most important events. The frog wishes she could fly, so she asks a heroine to teach her. The heroine tries to teach the frog, but the frog has no wings and cannot fly. A snake overhears the frog's wish to fly. He is wishing he can hop like the frog. So I now have thought about the characters and the events. So that will lead me to think about the lesson, the message, the moral. We call that the theme. So as I'm thinking about the jealous bird, I'm thinking about a lesson I can learn that can be applied to life. So I'm thinking about true friends will find their way back to each other, and it is better to value your talents. It is better to value your talents than to wish for someone else's. These are two themes taught throughout these texts. The jealous bird taught true friends will find their way back to each other, and the sad frog taught it is better to value your talents than to wish for someone else's. These are two lessons that we can learn throughout these two texts. So now I'm thinking about not just the characters, not just the main events, but also the lesson that can be learned through these two texts. So now let's go ahead and look at two new texts called The Flask of Oil, which is an Indian folktale, and The Peasant and the Cucumbers. As I'm reading, you're going to notice I've underlined some things in blue. These are things that I think are important when I'm thinking about the characters and events. These also are details that might help me understand more about the topic and the theme. Please fill in my blank using your chat bar. A poor man received the gift of a large and valuable flask of oil from a kind and wealthy blank. Delighted, the poor man carefully put it onto the top shelf in his home. One evening, as he was gazing at it, he said, "If I should sell it, I could buy 5 blank. Every year I have had lambs. If I sold the lambs, I would be rich enough to marry and perhaps have a son. And what a fine boy he would be. But if he should disobey me, and he raised the staff in his hand, I should punish him thus." So saying, he swung the staff, knocking the flask off the shelf so that the oil ran over him from head to blank. Good job filling in my blank. So I'm noticing that this is an Indian folk tale. Folk tales are very different. It's a different type of literature. And I need to understand that because folk tales teach a valuable lesson, which is important in a theme. So now notice I've underlined 2 details from the text. These 2 details are going to help me understand more about my topic and my theme. So now let's look at the peasant and the cucumbers. Fill in my blank. A peasant once went to the gardener's to steal cucumbers. He crept up to the cucumbers and thought, "I will carry off a bag of cucumbers, which I will sell. With the money, I will buy a hen. The hen will lay eggs, hatch them, and raise a lot of chickens. I will feed the chicks and sell them. Then I will buy me a young sow, and she will bear a lot of pigs." Well, since it says pigs, I can infer that a sow must be a young type of pig as it gets older. So another word for pig is sow. I will sell the pigs and buy me a mare. The mare will foal me some colts. Well, I can infer a mare must be a horse. Since it says the mare will foal me some colts, meaning have birth to colts, I will raise the colts and sell them. I will buy me a house and start a blank. In the garden, I will sow cucumbers and will not let them be stolen, but will keep a sharp watch on them. I will hire watchmen and put them in the cucumber patch while I myself will come on them unawares and shout, "Oh, there, keep a sharp lookout." And this he shouted as loud as he could. The watchmen heard it, and they rushed out and beat the peasant. Notice what I've underlined in blue on that text. Good job filling in my blank. So let's go ahead and think about the topic of these 2 texts, the flask of oil and the peasant and the cucumbers. And as we're thinking, I'm using this chart to compare and contrast. Okay, so I'm thinking the topic of both of these might be a man dreams of having a richer life. My characters of the flask of oil are a poor man, a wealthy neighbor. Also, of the peasant and the cucumbers, the second text, the characters are peasant and watchman. The events of the first text, the flask of oil, in order are the poor man receives a valuable flask of oil which he plans to sell. While talking about what he'll do with his riches, he accidentally spills the oil. And then the events in the peasant and the cucumbers are in order. The peasant tries to steal cucumbers. He daydreams about what will happen after he gets them, and he accidentally shouts and gets caught. So as I'm thinking about a theme, I'm thinking there's a common theme in both of these pieces of literature. I think a theme might be don't dream about the future when you need to focus on the present. That's something I can apply to my own life. Now, today you've seen me model how to compare and contrast characters, events, topics, and themes. I want you to look at this writing prompt and think with me. It says compare and contrast the way the events in the 2 short stories might develop similar themes. So notice in my green box it says, what kind of prompt is this? Oreo, narrative, or races? Using your chat, please answer that question by typing Oreo, narrative, or races. Our code word this week is awesome. So go ahead and answer that, awesome. Is it Oreo, narrative, or races? I'm noticing Gage was the first person courageous enough to answer. He said, I think it might be Oreo. Avani said Oreo. Emma says races. Notice it says compare and contrast the way the events in the two short stories develop similar themes. This is a races piece of writing. So we would restate, answer, cite, explain, and sum it up in our writing. I'm noticing Nora Beth gave an explanation. She said it's races because it needs evidence. Remember that Oreo also needs evidence, but this is races because it's asking you to compare and contrast, which is information. It's not asking how we feel about anything, which would be our opinion, and it's not asking for a beginning, middle, or end. That would be a narrative. Okay, so today we have started our study thinking about comparing and contrasting topics and themes. I want to very clearly go over expectations for our independent practice. Now listen guys, last time some of us didn't understand and did the wrong thing, so make sure you know what to do independently today. Remember that after today, these codes do expire, so you want to make sure that you do them. Don't get confused, guys. Today, your independent assignment is for Tuesday, 4/21 of 20. It's labeled Tuesday's independent practice. It is not this one that says mastery practice during Google Meet. Now, you can do that one too, but it is optional. This is the one that is required, Tuesday's independent practice. As you solve it, it's going to ask you to do your best to compare and contrast themes and topics. I do want to encourage you to do your best work because these are great opportunities to grow your average. Anything lower than your current average cannot go in the grade book, so you don't want to fly through it and not do your best. When you click on that, you'll see the code that you need in Google Classroom. And I'm going to display it for a couple of students who might need to write it down from here if you have technology trouble.